is next, and I believe we can get in Senator Warner and Senator Cantwell.
Check in.
Senator Brown, Chairman of the Banking Committee, which works very closely with this committee on housing.
Thank you for the witnesses today for joining us. As chair of the committee to which Chair Wyden referred, housing affordability is it's not only a priority, I think, for certainly everybody on this side of the aisle, perhaps beyond that, but a moral imperative. Too many people are paying too much to keep a roof over their head. A quarter of renters, and I think most of you know these statistics, a quarter of renters pay more than half their income in rent. Homeownership is increasingly out of reach to far too many families. I'm glad that what Senator Wyden and Senator Crapo are doing, scheduling this hearing, that we can work on this. So I partnered with Senator Wyden to introduce the Renters Tax Credit Act. This bill is intended to complement LIHTC and make sure that extremely low-income renters don't have to pay more than 30% of their income towards housing. You know what happens in families like that? Everything's upside down when they're evicted. So my first question is for Mr. Roberts. In Cleveland, we have a lot of homes that could provide good, affordable, first-generation homeownership opportunities. These homes, many of them need repairs. Some of you have heard me on this committee, as I say in our other committee, that the zip code my wife and I live in had more foreclosures in 2007 than any zip code in America, a zip code in Cleveland. So when homeowners can't make these repairs themselves, the houses sit empty or they're snapped up by out-of-state investors exploiting the tax code to turn a profit, and the problems of that are evident. So, Mr. Roberts, how could the Neighborhood Homes Investment Act, a bill I've worked on with Senator Cardin, I know he referred to it, help address the shortfall in affordable single-family homes and keep homes in the hands of lower-income and aspiring homeowners?
Well, thank you so much, Senator, for your leadership on neighborhood homes and low-income housing credits and everything you do in the Banking Committee. It's been really remarkable to see the comprehensiveness of your strategy. Neighborhood homes can fill the gap between what it costs to build or rehab a home in a struggling neighborhood and what the local market there can support. And without that, it's just not feasible for private developers or even existing homeowners to improve their homes and, by extension, the neighborhoods. The entire neighborhood suffers when these homes are deteriorated because most of the land use in most of these neighborhoods are single-family homes. So we can't really fix up those neighborhoods without addressing this problem. And neighborhood homes would allow states to deploy credits so that in just the right amount to cover that gap.
Thank you. Mr. Contra, I want to talk to you about your industry, about the home builders. We hear from people around the country what zoning regulations have done, impeding ability to build new homes across the country. Comment on that, and then comment on what if we were to provide funding to support communities that update zoning regulations, would that help increase the supply of housing?
Thank you, Senator. There's a great deal of NIMBYism. In fact, some of your colleagues have supported the YIMBY Act, which is yes in my neighborhood. And because of that, there tends to be zoning regulations that are put in place, whether intentional or disparate. The result is that they raise the cost of housing, and therefore we can't build affordable housing through those zoning requirements. So it is a great problem. Our members face it constantly. Things such as design standards being added to zoning, which has really nothing to do with zoning, but increases the cost of housing. Zoning is a tremendous problem.
So the question, though, was in understanding that, and I agree with you, and I think that's pretty much believed across the board. Would funding to support communities that update their zoning regulation have an impact? Is there a way of doing that? Are you proposing ways of making that happen?
Yes, funding to local associations, to local municipalities that reform their zoning regulations so that it will allow more affordable housing to be built and restrict as long as the property is zoned for single-family or multifamily, restrict any further regulations. That would help add to housing stock.
Mr. Ohanian, you agree with that?
Do I agree?
I'm sorry, Mr. Ohanian, do you agree with that, sir?
Yes, I do, Senator. There's just a massive body of peer-reviewed research that studied zoning regulations and how those increase the cost of housing and depress construction. And yeah, my own research has looked at that as well. And my co-authors and I find that affordability would substantially increase, and inflation-adjusted GDP would rise in the U.S. as a consequence of rolling back zoning regulations and land use regulations back to what they were in the 1990s or the early 2000s.
That reason. Okay, thank you. And not a question, but Ms. Bell, your senior senator has been a really good partner on these housing issues between the committee that I chair and this committee, and thank you for that.
What an